Good day, everyone, and here I am, Daryl Woodhouse, yet again with a fantastic guest speaker. We have Michael Stevens, who is a mental health and self-care advocate, and many other things. Michael, thank you for making the time for us today, and please tell us more about you.
Hi, Daryl. Thanks for having me. Mental health and self-care advocate. I often get asked, what does that even mean? So it means that I promote the importance of mental health discussions, and I also promote the importance of prioritizing self-care and well-being. Primarily, I do that within the creative and LGBT communities. And yeah, I do that through my own channels. So that might be through writing articles or social media, or I do it through conversations like we're having right now. And I also do it through my retreats and workshops business, Create Space.
Fantastic. Tell us more about your story and your career, Michael, and what brought you to this moment today where you're a very popular mental health and self-care advocate.
Popular by whose standards? I think it's quite a different situation that I found myself in today compared to even a year ago. I was working in a kind of corporate setting up until early last year, and I had been doing that for probably about 10 years within the creative communities. So I was working for some quite big brands in the fashion industry as well as the kind of magazine industry. And I've been in London for probably 8 years, climbing the ladder, seemingly doing quite well. I was progressing quite fast, and I was loving every minute of it, if I'm honest, because it was a creative, there were creative roles and they were for big brands, and I was getting a lot of recognition for it. But I was gradually putting more and more emphasis on the importance of my career, and I was actually just working myself into the ground and wasn't taking care of myself at all. And I found myself on a couple of times in quite self-destructive situations where I had to actually get medical help. The first was when I realised I needed to go to the doctor because I had an eating disorder that I'd managed to keep secret for about 10 years. And then the second time was when I realised I'd burnt out, and I needed to get some help there. I didn't really know what to do there, to be honest. It kind of sidelined me. And I know that it sidelined me because I went to the doctors and they diagnosed me to a certain extent, as much as they could do. And my response was, I just need to go into work and just finish this one thing. And I heard myself play it back, and I was like, no, something's wrong. I mean, at that point, I couldn't move my neck left and right. I'd got IBS, I'd got eczema, insomnia. I was self-medicating with Xanax for my sleeping. I was a mess. So yeah, sorry, that's my emails. That's okay. It's been a bit of a kind of roller coaster over the last year, because very quickly I realized that I needed to take a break, and that the way that I was operating was not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so I took a break, and I really wanted to figure out why I'd put myself in that situation where I had essentially deprioritized my own health and well-being in order to succeed professionally, which just seems very strange when you look at it objectively. But when I was in the moment, it felt very real, like everything was really kind of focused on my career, and that was what was most important. So I had to actually go deep diving into my past, which it wasn't kind of intentional. It required really unraveling lots of different layers, and it led me back to my childhood, which I'd actually started exploring a few years before, and decided that I wasn't ready to do that work because I could kind of see where it was going, and just thought, no, I'm enjoying myself too much. I don't particularly want to kind of rock the boat. So I just put it back in this metaphorical box and put it under the bed. And so like all kind of good things from this good past secrets, they always come out. But I mean, it was not really a secret. It was, I guess it was a secret in the sense that I hid my sexuality for so long. And when I came out, I thought that was going to be it. That was like, my life has changed now. I'm accepted and I can do whatever I want and I can be whoever I want to be. And I never thought that I would have to hold on to such a secret again, a lie. But as I mentioned earlier, I developed an eating disorder and kept that secret for 10 years. And then I obviously was keeping secret how I was really feeling at work, because I didn't tell anyone about that, because it would have made my life look less perfect, I guess. Yeah. So I think we often don't want to show any vulnerability because we get taught that vulnerability is weakness, and especially within a kind of professional environment where it's quite not necessarily cutthroat, but it's very fast paced, and if you're not on the bus then you're being left behind to a certain extent. And I definitely wanted to be on the bus, and I wanted to drive the bus, so it was a case of putting everything else aside. Yeah. And I just didn't have the education. I didn't have the education around what is well-being and why is it important, and why is what I guess work-life balance would have been the terminology that was maybe around, but I didn't understand it. It wasn't talked about amongst my friends, and it wasn't talked about at work. And I worked for some very progressive companies in terms of their ambitions around diversity, inclusion, were kind of much more advanced than some sectors, but yet there was really a lack of infrastructure to support, especially people my age who perhaps were fresh out of university to a certain extent, and were really eager, really driven, willing to dedicate themselves, and not necessarily receive the support. So okay. That was kind of why I ended up leaving that career path.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Wow. And thank you very much for being so open and sharing that experience with us as well.
You didn't ask for it, but you got it. Sorry.
No. Well, I was going to ask for it. But just going back to that moment when you decided that you were going to go and get some help for the burnout. What created that to happen? What changed?
Like I said, there was physical pain, which meant I used to have to commute 2 hours each way, and it was just I couldn't do that. My neck hurt so
Okay.
much, and
So basically, all those symptoms you'd had building up for a while, it just got too much, and you were like, right, I need
yeah,
to do something about it.
yeah. I'd already been on Xanax for about 2 months before that happened, and was definitely self-medicating through kind of whether it was alcohol, as well as kind of just paracetamol to numb the pain and stuff. So it just got to a point where my body was like, this is enough. So that was kind of the physical side of it. And then the mental side of it was, I recognized that I wasn't able to do the job to the capabilities that I wanted to, because I was unable to see through the mist. There was this kind of just layer in front of me that was, normally I'm very kind of, I'm a big thinker. I'm all about the kind of, the grand plan, the ideas, and thankfully I've always had great teams beneath me who can help me realize that plan. I'm not particularly involved in the detail. I am now with my own business, and that's been a real learning curve. But yeah, I just wasn't able to have those big creative ideas. I was purely just able to deal with what was there in the moment. And that was really frustrating for me. And I got a new boss, and they picked up on it. And so it was a not nice feeling, because obviously for someone who's put all that emphasis on your job to then not be able to actually deliver it to the standard that you want to, it's kind of like a double hit. And I mean, I was also having to make a lot of redundancies. So just the emotional exhaustion from having to do that was, it just kind of combined all together, really.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. And thanks again for sharing this, Michael. So obviously thinking about that, a difficult place that you got to where you are now, much happier place. Tell us a bit more about the how you're using that experience for good now, with being a mental health advocate, but also with Create Space Retreats. Tell us more about that too.
Yeah, so when I realized that perhaps I was in the job for the wrong reasons, that I was actually, I was striving for recognition, really. That was the thing that I was looking for. And that recognition, you don't really ever reach it. It's this kind of unobtainable, because by the time you do reach it, there's something like seemingly higher that it's like you're just kind of constantly climbing. So when I realized that, it really made me question whether or not I wanted to go back into that work, especially because by the time I got to the level I was at, I wasn't doing as much creative work as I had been doing at the start of my career. And it was a lot of people management. I'd been doing that for many years. And to be honest, I needed to focus on myself. And I loved working with people, but what I loved was helping them achieve their own creative goals. And I would just wanted to carry on doing that, aside from the managerial tasks of having to focus on productivity and all of those fun things that you have to do when you're kind of managing a team and budget, which are just, a factor of running a business now. But at the time it was like, I need to just do something different. And my brother was already working within the retreat space. He had a business set up, which was in Costa Rica in one half of the year, and then it was in Europe for the other half, based on the seasons. And he'd been running that for about 15 years, so he was quite established. So my brother and I really wanted to do something together, and I came up with this concept, which was around combining health and creativity and well-being. And we wanted to use kind of art therapy practices alongside physical health practices, as well as kind of more holistic techniques as well. And so Create Space Retreats was kind of born out of that, really. We wanted to support the creative industries, because what I found was, when working in the creative world, you often put a lot of yourself into your work, and you can self-identify with your work a bit too much. So then when you are criticized for your work, you often take that as a personal criticism, as well as just the fact that often when you're following your passion, you perhaps give a bit too much of your time towards it. So you lose sight of that balance, because you are having fun on one hand, but at the same time, when you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, then it's very easy for them to come crashing down if it gets dropped. So yeah. I think what I learned was the importance of, yes, be passionate about your work, spend a good portion of your day doing that, but don't spend all your time doing it. Also, it's just, I found myself talking a lot about my work as well, which is interesting to a certain extent, but sometimes that you don't even then end up switching off when you're not even working, because you're just talking about your work. So doing something completely different was really important. And so I think that's kind of what we try and do on these retreats. We try and give people opportunities to take a break. So that could be, it could be kind of going on more kind of cultural expeditions. It could be holistic practices, like we do meditation every morning, or it could be doing some art classes. It could be just going on a really lovely long walk, or doing cooking classes. And we try and curate the groups so that you do actually end up networking while you're there. And what I found as well was these breaks, these reset moments are so important for your creativity, because when your mind is very kind of cloudy and it's full of that static, then it's very hard to, like I said before, have that kind of thinking and those kind of new ideas, because you're just kind of working through what's there in the moment. So looking outside for new perspectives, that's kind of what this is all about, creating space for those big ideas.
It's fantastic, Michael. I if I try and rephrase that in my own words, it's the thing I talk about with is headspace. And if you're working too hard for too long, and you've got too much pressure, or if you're not feeling good in yourself, not the best version of yourself, with like fitness levels, mentally, physically, if you're in desperate need of a holiday and some time out, you struggle for headspace. And I can describe headspace as where it's just like it's harder to make decisions, or harder to come up with the great ideas that we know we're capable of, or the great solutions to problems. And that, well, if any of us are feeling like that, it's really important to slow down a bit, take some time out, go into a different environment, and the key part of that is work-life balance, and carefully balancing that physical, mental health, as alongside sensible working hours and managing stress at work. Would you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, there's a really kind of lovely way of looking at it, which someone kind of explained it to me this way once, which is, if you imagine life without any pauses, so if you imagine a song without the breaks, then it just becomes one continuous note. And I think that's kind of how we need to look at it. The pauses that we take in life punctuate those important moments, and they become even more powerful. But without them, then it kind of all just blurs into one. So that's what we try and do.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a great example. I think the retreats are fantastic, Michael, and I've definitely, over the last probably 3 or 4 years, sort of seen a trend of more and more entrepreneurs and business leaders, not just in creative space, but in any sector, are talking about, they've been on a retreat and it was fantastic, or they're planning on going one, and just people generally raving about it. I've seen that happen more often. So I guess my prediction is that in this corona crisis and this recession that we're in, and many of our lives being turned upside down, I'm imagining that there should be a greater calling for more people to go on retreats, and when we can travel, of course, or I'd say you've done some recently virtually as well. You've managed to make that work despite lockdown. Is that
we've
something you can tell us more about?
A few virtual retreats, which it sounds like probably something that you wouldn't want to do, if I'm honest. If someone had said to me a virtual retreat 6 months ago, I would have said,
yes,
it defeats the whole point of going on a retreat. You want to detox from technology in your time off, not kind of re-engage through a screen. However, what we've ended up creating are these sequences of workshops which come together and complement each other. And we've designed it specifically for Zoom, which means that it's in really kind of bite-sized little modules, and we are moving around the room. We're getting you up, we're getting you breathing, we are getting you talking to other people in groups of different sizes. You're expanding on your kind of understanding of a particular subject, but as well, you're getting to see things from other people's perspectives as well, which I think is really important at this time, because when we're at home, and especially if we're just scrolling through our Facebook or Instagram, you're often just seeing things from the perspective of the people that are in your network. So actually getting to meet someone else from outside of that really opens you up to personal growth. And I think there's kind of a risk of not stagnating during this period, but almost kind of wanting it to be over. And what we've tried to do is just make the most of the time. And especially the retreats that we've been doing are specifically for the LGBT community, who are suffering quite a lot in isolation. And this has kind of just allowed them to reach out to another network of support, really.
That's fantastic. No, I think you almost half apologized there for doing virtual retreats at the start, but I'm a believer. Well, we're in circumstances that were kind of put onto us, and we have to make the best we can of them. And doing a retreat is better, i.e. a virtual one is better than having no retreat at a time when people really do need help with social interaction, mental health, well-being, managing the stress, and having someone to talk to you about the restructuring we're having to do in our businesses and a whole host of things. So I think it's fantastic that you've done that, Michael. So yeah, well done for me for that. Just thinking about like where you are now to where you were when you went to get help, when you hit that, when you realised enough was enough with that burnout. Are there sort of 2 or 3 key things you could share as to what helped you recover, I guess, and get back to a happier place?
It was probably an extensive period of rest. That was really important. Redefining my relationship with, well, redefining a lot of relationships, to be honest. Relationship with work, relationship with success, relationship with just people in my life as well, because I ended up leaving London and changing careers, and you don't necessarily circulate within the same social groups anymore. So and then I think reconnecting with nature, with my family, with myself. So all kind of things that you often hear people talking about now that have helped them in lockdown, to be honest. So I was actually quite well versed with this situation, conveniently. Yeah, it's
a great plan, Michael, obviously.
Yeah, I had almost like the
Fantastic.
warm-up session, but this, yeah, I mean, it's been a bit more extreme, obviously, lockdown, but I knew where to go to get to get grounded, I guess. So rather than, I mean, when it first happened, and you had to deal with, well, I had to deal with just cancellations and plans that weren't happening, and customer refunds and stuff like that. It was a bit too much, and I just needed to take a break for a couple of weeks. But I knew how to get myself back to that place, which was I guess positive. I don't see myself now as a positive person necessarily. I don't, because I think if you're, I guess there's ups and downs in life. That's kind of how I see it, and being able to feel through those is what's important. Not that you're constantly positive, because you can almost feel the pressure then to be that way. So yeah, I think they were the main things that got me kind of back to, actually not even just back to how, because I don't think I've ever been like this, that I've never, this is a very new situation for me. It was about
fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. Okay, so I was going to ask as well, thinking now with what you've learned over the years, if you were to go back in time, or to let's say advise a younger version of yourself, what would you say to Michael Stevens 10 or even 20 years ago about approach to work, approach to life?
I think 20 years ago would just be, everything's going to be okay. Probably just what a child wants to hear, just, you're loved, which is probably, it's said much more now, because we understand the psychological implications of that not being said. But It wasn't that I wasn't loved, it's that as a child, I didn't necessarily feel it. So that would be 20. And then 10 years ago would be probably just have patience, stop trying to rush through life, stop trying to do everything at 100 miles an hour, and just try and stop and breathe every 5 minutes and enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think many people can do more of that for sure. Now, thinking of our audience, Michael, so we've got entrepreneurs, business leaders, hardworking executives from small, medium, large companies around the world, and that are going to be watching this in the millions over the coming weeks, as if it was the next best thing to come out of Hollywood. If any one of our listeners are feeling concerned about their own mental health and their well-being, or that of someone they care about, what advice would you give them? What should they do next?
Yeah, I'm not really one to give advice per se, because I think mental health is so subjective to a certain extent. We all feel things very differently, and what you describe as the way you're feeling might be interpreted by me very differently. So I think if you have any concerns, then seeking help would be probably the number one thing to do, because you're going to get proper medical advice. If you can speak to your family or friends about it, then often we just need to get it out of our head sometimes. And I mean, I write a lot because it allows me to be quite objective. Because if you imagine when you're thinking about how you're feeling, it's quite hard to navigate that in your head, because it's got other thoughts to compete with it, and it's got things going on around you. So when you write it down, you can start kind of picking it apart a bit, and like you can actually say, is that real? What I've just written down? Quite often it's not, in terms of we sometimes in our heads it seems a lot bigger. So yeah, I would say breathing is really important, to help just with calming down before you react to anything, and taking notes as well, to keep track of your how you're feeling throughout a longer period.
Fantastic. I think that's whether you intended to or not, I think that's great advice you've just shared. Thank you, Michael. But it's, there's professional and psychological type help for this kind of stuff, and Michael nor I are one of those. But there's help from our own real experiences, and as Michael's shared there, there's some fantastic helplines, free helplines available for people to talk to as well, with trained professionals in mental health at the end of the phone. Mind is one of those great charities and great websites, very resourceful, lots of helpful stuff. Samaritans as well is a great one. And if you've got a good relationship with your local GP, that's also a good place to start, as well as talking to friends and family that you trust, as Michael said earlier. So Michael, you've been very, very generous with your time and sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today, and some fantastic tips that you've shared as well. So we're very grateful. Thank you very much. For anyone watching who's keen to read more about Michael and follow more of his work, in the description below this video, you'll be able to access his social media and website links, so you can get connected and keep in touch. And also, don't forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on all the other great interviews and videos we have lined up to help you with work-life balance, becoming the best version of yourself in life and in work, and hopefully making life a little bit easier, because it can be hard and we do have ups and downs, so we all need to support each other. So lots of more resource on the way. Don't miss out. Michael, thank you very much once again, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.